The forest was quiet. Only the wind moved through the trees, and the soft sound of leaves brushing against each other filled the air. Jake sat near his small campfire. He was tired and hungry. It had been 6 weeks since his ship crashed on this wild alien planet. The food was almost finished. The nights were cold and the forest was full of strange sounds. But he was alive. He took a deep breath and opened a small pack of rations. The heat from the fire warmed his hands as he placed a thin metal tray near the flames. The food didn't smell good, but it was better than nothing. Suddenly he heard something, a soft cry. Very faint. Like a child sobbing in the dark. Jake looked up. He waited. There it was again. A sad, broken sound, somewhere deep between the trees. He grabbed his small light and stood up slowly. His heart beat faster. It could be an animal, or worse, a predator. But something inside him said it was not. He stepped into the shadows. The forest was dark. His boots crunched the dry leaves. He moved slowly, carefully, until he saw something. A soft shape behind a tree. He raised his light. And then he saw her. A woman, but not human. Her skin was soft blue, glowing slightly like moonlight. Her hair was long and silver, like starlight, flowing over her shoulders. Her face was dirty and her lips were dry. She wore strange armor, damaged and broken. One arm hung loosely, maybe injured. Her large eyes, glowing a soft green, were full of fear. She did not speak. She stared at him, frozen like a frightened deer. Jake put his hands up slowly. "I won't hurt you," he said gently. She didn't move. He took one small step forward. "Are you okay?" he asked. Still, no answer. Just fear in her eyes. Then her eyes moved, to the hot food in his hand. Jake paused. He looked at the tray, in his hand, then back at her. She looked so thin. Her ribs showed through the skin. Her hands were shaking. Without a word, Jake placed the food on a flat rock and stepped back. The alien girl looked at the food, then at him. Silence. Then, slowly, very slowly, she moved. She crawled forward like a wounded animal. Her hands touched the food almost like she didn't believe it was real. She picked up a piece of the soft bread and sniffed it. She put it in her mouth. And suddenly, she started crying. Her body shook. Tears ran down her cheeks. She covered her face and cried hard. Deep, painful sobs that came from her soul. Jake didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched. She was starving, hurt, alone. And now, she was safe. "I'm Jake," he said quietly. "You're not alone anymore." The alien girl looked at him through her tears. She didn't speak, but her eyes said thank you. She finished the food slowly, carefully, like it was something holy. Then she leaned back against the tree. Her eyes were heavy, her body weak. Jake pulled out a thin thermal blanket and gently placed it near her. "You can rest," he said. "No one will hurt you here." She looked at him one last time, then closed her eyes. Jake sat nearby. He didn't sleep that night. He just watched her, the stranger in the forest. Morning came slowly on the alien planet. The twin suns rose above the trees, casting golden light over the forest. Jake opened his eyes. He had not slept much. All night, he kept looking at the blue-skinned girl sleeping under the blanket. She was still there, still breathing, still silent. Jake stood up and quietly walked to the small stream nearby. He filled a bottle with clean water, then returned. He knelt beside her and placed the water and a fresh food pack on a flat stone near her. The alien girl slowly opened her eyes. For a moment she looked confused, afraid. Then she saw Jake. Her body relaxed a little. "You're safe," Jake said softly. She said nothing. She sat up slowly. Her arms moved with pain. Jake noticed bruises on her wrists and neck, old ones, and fresh ones. Her face looked tired, too tired for someone so young. She picked up the bottle and drank carefully. Then, without speaking, she ate. Jake watched her. "Can you understand me?" he asked gently. The alien girl looked at him. She didn't answer, but her eyes were intelligent. She wasn't just surviving. She was thinking. Jake smiled. "Okay, no talking yet. That's fine." For the next 2 days, she stayed close to the camp but didn't speak. Jake gave her food, water, and space. She never asked for anything, but she never tried to run away. She watched him carefully, like someone expecting betrayal, like someone used to pain. Jake worked around the camp. He fixed broken solar panels. He boiled water. He made a small shelter, with branches and metal sheets. The girl watched him every day, her green eyes following every move. On the 3rd evening, she stood beside the fire for the first time. Jake smiled. "Cold, huh?" She didn't answer, but she reached out her hand, slowly, carefully, and held it near the fire. The heat warmed her blue fingers. Jake gently passed her a small piece of cloth. "For your hands," he said. She took it silently. Then suddenly, she knelt on the ground, picked up a sharp stick, and drew something in the dirt. Jake leaned closer. It was a circle with 3 lines inside and a tiny shape like a human inside a cage. Jake blinked. "A prison?" The alien girl nodded, just once. Jake frowned. "Were you a prisoner?" No answer, but her eyes turned dark with sadness. He pointed at the marks on her neck. "They did that to you?" She didn't look at him, but her hands clenched. Jake sat back slowly. This girl, this alien, had been tortured, locked, starved, and now she was here, with him. "I'm sorry," he said softly. The girl looked up at him. Her eyes met his, and for the first time she whispered, "Something, one word, right?" Jake's heart skipped. "Ryla? That's your name?" She nodded. Jake smiled. "Ryla, I'm Jake." He pointed to himself. "Jake." Then to her. "Ryla." A tiny smile touched her lips, for just a second. That night, Ryla sat closer to the fire. She ate beside Jake. She drank the warm soup he made. And when a loud sound came from the sky, a distant thunder or maybe a ship, she suddenly grabbed his arm. Her fingers were cold. Her face turned white. Hey, Jake said. "It's okay. Just noise. You're safe." But Ryla looked up at the sky with terror. Then she whispered in broken English, "They looking for me." Jake froze. "Who?" She didn't answer. She only pointed to her neck, where the scar was, and whispered again, "Tracker, still here." The next morning the wind felt different. The sky was not blue, it was gray, filled with slow-moving clouds that carried more than just weather. Jake stood outside the shelter, sharpening a stick into a spear. He didn't hunt for sport, only for safety. But today his hands were tense. Ryla sat on a rock nearby. She wasn't eating. Her eyes stared at the sky, unblinking. The fear on her face was back. Jake looked at her. "You felt something last night," he said. "Didn't you?" She didn't answer, but she touched her neck where the scar was. Her fingers pressed against her skin. There was something under it, a small bump. Jake stepped closer. "That's the tracker, isn't it?" Ryla nodded. Jake's heart pounded. If it was still active, then someone could find her, any time. Suddenly, a loud whoosh broke the air. Jake looked up. 3 silver shapes moved across the sky, low and fast. Not birds, not clouds, ships. He grabbed Ryla's arm and pulled her into the trees. They hid behind thick vines and stone roots as the ships passed over the forest, humming like angry bees. Ryla was shaking. "They hear," she whispered. "They come." Jake held her close. "We need to move now." They packed quickly. Jake hid his camp supplies under leaves and rocks. Then with Ryla close behind, they moved deep into the forest where even the sun didn't reach. They walked for hours. Jake carried the food. Ryla stayed silent, her eyes scanning the trees like a hunted animal. Finally, they stopped, near a cliff wall covered in moss. Jake found a narrow cave, small but dry. He cleared it out and made space for the night. Inside the cave, Ryla finally spoke. Long time ago. I was taken, she said slowly, her voice broken. They put chain on me, lock hurt me, make me bow. Jake looked at her. Why? She closed her eyes. Because I am born of high blood. Jake frowned. You're important? Ryla nodded. But I ran far. I did not want to marry monster. I escaped. Jake's eyes widened. You were supposed to be married. To someone? She looked down. Not someone, a warlord. Old, evil. He takes women, breaks them. Jake clenched his fists, his voice was sharp. And your people were okay with that? No, she whispered. My brothers, they chase me. They want to take me back. For family honor. Jake was silent. So this was not just a rescue. This was a war between her freedom and her bloodline. And now, he was in the middle of it. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He watched the cave entrance while Ryla rested, her head on a pile of dry leaves. The night was quiet. Until he heard something, a soft beeping. Jake turned. It was coming from Ryla. No, not from her, from inside her neck. He rushed to her side, gently turning her head. The scar was glowing faintly. A red light blinking. Tracker is live, he whispered. He reached for his toolkit. Carefully, he used a scanner from his crash gear. It confirmed it. The tracker was broadcasting. They know where we are, Jake said, his voice low. Suddenly, the sky outside lit up. Bright, sharp lights. Cutting through the trees, a sound followed. Heavy boots. Growling alien voices. Ryla sat up quickly, her eyes wide with panic. Jake grabbed his pack. We run, now! They ran through the trees, fast and silent. Behind them, shadows moved. Voices shouted. They're close! Ryla, cried. Jake grabbed her hand. This way! I saw a cave system on the map. They sprinted toward a cliff. Behind them, a strange weapon beam exploded a tree, sending wood and fire into the air. Ryla fell, her leg bleeding. Jake lifted her in his arms and ran. He didn't stop. He didn't care how heavy she was. He would not leave her. Not now. Not ever. They reached the hidden cave just before more shots fired. Jake slid into the darkness, holding Ryla tight. Inside, it was cold and silent. Ryla sobbed quietly, pressing her face to his chest. They will not stop, she said. They want me dead or broken. Jake looked into her eyes. Then let them come, he said. But next time, we fight back. The cave was dark but not silent. Outside, the sky still flashed with distant lights, search beams moving through the trees like ghost fingers. Alien voices echoed in the night. Jake sat at the mouth of the cave, holding a sharp stick like a weapon. His eyes never closed. Ryla slept behind him, her injured leg bandaged with cloth torn from his own shirt. He listened. Every sound made his heart jump. Every snap of a twig made him grip the spear tighter. At dawn, the forest went quiet. No ships, no voices, only wind and birds. He turned to Ryla. She was awake, watching him. Her eyes looked tired but strong. They stopped, he said. Maybe we have time. Ryla shook her head. They don't stop. They wait. Jake looked at her carefully. Then we make a plan. For 2 days, they hid in the cave. Jake used his tools to finish scanning the tracker, inside Ryla's neck. It was deep under the skin and dangerous to remove without the right tools, but he couldn't wait forever, so he made a decision. I'll take it out, he said. Ryla looked afraid. If it breaks, I die. Jake nodded. Then I'll do it right. He made a clean surface. He boiled his tools. He cut small pieces of metal from his survival kit to use as clamps. Ryla lay still, biting down on a piece of leather. Jake worked slowly, carefully. Sweat dripped down his face. He finally saw the tracker. It was small, black, beeping with a tiny red light. He reached for it with shaking fingers, and just then, a voice shouted outside the cave, "Ryla." Jake froze. Another voice answered, louder, "She's inside, move in." The cave lit up. Someone fired a stun beam near the entrance. Jake grabbed the tracker, but his hands slipped. The tool cut too deep. Ryla screamed in pain. Blood spilled. Jake cursed. "I can't finish. We have to go." But it was too late. A flash of white light filled the cave, and everything went dark. When Jake opened his eyes, he was tied to a tree. His arms were behind him, his legs bound. His head ached. He looked around. They were back in the forest clearing, and Ryla was on her knees, her hands tied above her head to a wooden pole. Her face was bleeding. Her silver hair was dirty and torn. 3 tall aliens, in black armor, stood around her. One of them walked toward Jake. He removed his helmet. He looked just like Ryla, but older, crueler. His eyes burned with anger. "You are the human," the alien said. Jake didn't answer. "You fed her. You hid her. You touched her. You think that means she belongs to you?" Jake growled. "She belongs to no one." The alien slapped him hard. "She is my sister," he said. "She was promised to the Lord of Blades. She ran like a coward." Jake's eyes widened. "This was her brother. She ran to survive," Jake said. "He would have destroyed her." The alien raised his weapon. "So, will I, if she does not return with honor?" Ryla screamed. "No, please, don't hurt him." The alien turned to her. "You brought shame. You chose a human. You are not my blood anymore." He raised his arm. Ryla closed her eyes. But before he could strike, a sudden explosion rocked the ground. Jake's backpack, left nearby, had detonated one of his traps. Smoke filled the air. The alien shouted in confusion. Jake used the moment to twist his wrist and pulled out a hidden blade from his boot. In seconds, he cut the rope. He leapt up and tackled one of the guards. Ryla screamed, "Jake, behind you." Jake turned, just in time to block a strike from her brother. They fought hard. Jake was smaller, weaker, but faster. He kicked the alien's knee, grabbed his weapon, and pointed it at the last soldier. "Let her go," Jake shouted. Ryla's brother stood, up slowly, bleeding from his mouth. "You'll never escape," he growled. "She is marked." Jake didn't flinch. "Then we'll keep running." He fired the stun beam, knocking all 3 to the ground. Then he rushed to Ryla, cut her ropes, and lifted her gently. She was crying again, but not from fear, from love. "You came for me," she whispered. "Every time," Jake said, "until I can't breathe anymore." The rain fell gently on the forest, soft and cold. Jake sat inside a dark cave, carefully wrapping bandages around Ryla's arms. She had deep cuts from the ropes, and one leg still bled from where she had fallen during their escape. But she didn't cry. She just stared at the fire, her face calm, too calm, like someone who had seen too much pain to cry anymore. Jake spoke quietly. "They were going to kill you." Ryla didn't answer. Jake placed a warm cloth over her shoulder. "One of them said you were marked. What does that mean?" Ryla looked at him for a long moment. Then she whispered, "You need to know. All of it." She took a deep breath, and her voice shook as she spoke. "My name is Ryla Tanvek. I am the first daughter of House Tanvek, rulers of the outer moons of Velkar. My blood is royal." Jake nodded slowly. "You were telling the truth. You're a princess." She looked away. "No, not a princess. A prisoner. Since birth, I was not a person. I was a price." Jake frowned. "A price?" "Yes," she whispered. "Promised to a warlord called Drex Velzur. He is not just cruel, he is poison. He buys families with fear." Her hands trembled as she spoke. "My family made peace by giving me to him, and they implanted something inside me. She paused, then reached behind her back and slowly pulled her armor aside. On the left side of her back, below her shoulder, was a silver line shaped like a seal, glowing faintly under her skin. "This," she said, "is the Blood Oath core." Jake leaned closer. "What does it do?" "It binds me," she whispered. "If I run too far and or refuse him or marry another, it will kill me." From the inside, Jake's eyes widened. "They put a death device in you?" Raila nodded. "They called it honor. I call it a cage." Jake sat back, his heart heavy. He had seen pain before, during war, during crashes, during the loss of his own people. But this was cruelty born of politics. "She's a weapon," he whispered to himself. Raila continued. "You removed the tracker, Usus, but not this. The core is deep. Only a high-tech surgical tool can take it out. And only someone who knows my blood code can stop the death trigger." Jake stood up. "We'll find someone. We'll get help." Raila smiled sadly. "No one will help me. Not from your kind. Not from mine." Jake looked at her. "Then I'll learn how to do it myself." She looked into his eyes. "Even if you remove it, there is something else." She pointed to her chest. "There is a signal. Inside my heartbeat. It sends a pulse every cycle. It keeps me alive, but also keeps me owned." Jake froze. "You mean, even your heart is wired?" She nodded. Jake sat down again, silent. The fire cracked softly. He finally whispered, "Why didn't you give up?" Raila looked into the flames. "I was starving in the forest, ready to die. But then, a human gave me food. Not because I was royal. Not because I was useful, just because I was hungry." Her voice broke. "No one ever gave me something without a price. Until you." Later that night, Raila fell asleep beside the fire, her breathing slow and quiet. Jake stayed, awake. He opened his worn survival notebook and started writing. Not about tools, not about escape plans, about how to deactivate a Blood Oath core. He sketched every detail he remembered from his scan. Every wire, every pulse rhythm, every possible override he could imagine. Because he knew one thing: he would not let her die with chains inside her body. The next morning they were moving again. They headed east toward the old crash zone, where Jake's ship had first fallen. The wreckage might hold medical equipment strong enough to cut deep under skin, but halfway through the jungle, Jake stopped. Something was wrong. Too quiet. No birds. No wind. Suddenly, a flash of light. A net shot out from behind a tree, electronic, and glowing. Jake dove to the side, but Raila screamed. The net wrapped around her. She fell hard, struggling, trapped in electricity. Jake pulled his knife and ran, but before he reached her, a shadow stepped out. A tall woman, armored in black, with glowing red eyes. "I'm not here for you, human," she said coldly. "I came for her." Jake stood in front of Raila, blade ready. "You'll have to kill me first." The woman tilted her head. "If I wanted you dead, you'd be bleeding already." Then she held out a small device and said something that shocked them both. "I can remove the core, but I don't do it for free." Jake stared at the strange armored woman. She was tall, cold, and dangerous. Her voice was flat like metal, her eyes glowing red from under a sharp helmet. The strange device in her hand hummed softly, like it had power no one else understood. Behind, Jake Raila lay on the ground, trapped inside the glowing net, gasping, her skin burning from the static. "You said you can remove the core," Jake growled, holding his knife tighter. "Why would you help?" The woman didn't blink. "Because I hate the same people who put it inside her." Jake stepped forward. "Then free her now." The woman shook her head slowly. "I said I don't do it for free." Jake narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" The armored woman looked at Raila, then back at Jake. "There is a vault in the Fallen Zone, an ancient war zone buried under the eastern mountains. Inside is a data crystal. I need it. You get it for me. And I'll remove the core. Jake hesitated. That area is full of traps, radiation, old machines that still kill. The woman tilted her head. Yes, that's why I'm not going in. But you will. Jake looked at Raila, who was still struggling inside the net. Release her, Jake said. Now, or the deal is off. The woman didn't move. Then, after a pause, she tapped a button on her gauntlet. The net dissolved into blue sparks. Raila coughed, crawling toward Jake. He caught her in his arms. The woman turned and started walking away. You have 48 hours, she said, or the offer dies. That night, Jake and Raila made camp inside. A hollow tree. Ryla's burns were shallow, but her body was weak. Jake used cooling gel and soft cloth to heal her skin. Her eyes stayed on his the whole time. You shouldn't trust her, Raila whispered. She's a ghost from the wars. Jake frowned. What does that mean? She's one of the nullborn, war soldiers made from cloning and machines, half dead, half alive. They used to burn cities for fun. Jake looked away. Still, she's our only chance. Raila grabbed his hand. Don't die for me. Jake smiled faintly. Too late for that. The next day, Jake entered the fallen zone. The air smelled like ash and old metal. Broken machines lay everywhere. Some, the size of buildings, half buried in red dirt. Old bones, cracked helmets, forgotten weapons. He moved fast, quiet. Drones still floated between the ruins. Some were blind, others were not. Jake used every trick he knew. Camouflage spray, motion-blocking cloth, silent boots. One wrong move, and he'd be vaporized. At last he found the vault. It was buried under a collapsed wall. Ancient symbols marked the door. He scanned the lock. It beeped red. No code, no way in, he muttered. But then he remembered the alien crystal Raila had worn around her neck. Something she never explained. He took it from his pocket and pressed it against the lock. Click. The vault opened with a soft hiss. Inside was one thing. A glowing, spinning blue crystal. It hovered in the air like it was alive. Jake grabbed it and ran. He reached the camp just after sundown. The woman was waiting. Raila sat by the fire, her eyes watching closely. Jake threw the crystal to the ground. Now, keep your promise. Woman picked up the crystal and placed it inside a metal case. Then she walked to Raila. No tricks, Jake warned, his hand on his weapon. The woman opened her kit, sleek silver tools and a glowing hand scanner. Raila sat still, her lips tight, her eyes brave. The woman placed a small silver ring on Raila's neck. It blinked, scanned. Then she took out a long needle. This will feel like fire, she said, but only for a moment. The needle touched Raila's skin. She screamed, her body arched. Her hands clawed the ground. The fire flickered from the shockwave pulsing out of her back. Jake ran to hold her hand. You're okay, he whispered. I'm here. Then, a small spark flew into the air. The silver line on Raila's back vanished. The blood oath core was gone. She collapsed in Jake's arms. Free. For the first time in her life. The woman stood and turned to leave. Jake looked at her. Why did you really help? She paused. I once loved someone too, she said. They didn't survive. Maybe now someone else will. She vanished into the trees. That night Raila woke up in Jake's arms. I feel lighter, she whispered. You're free, he said softly. No more chains. No more orders. You belong to no one. She touched his chest. Then let me stay with you. He nodded, and as the stars shined above the forest, they sat together. Two souls that had run through fire and come out whole. But peace would not last long, because someone else was coming. Someone worse than the brothers. The warlord had heard she was still alive. The morning sky was too quiet. Even the birds didn't sing. Even the wind didn't blow. Jake stood at the edge of the cliff, watching the sun rise slowly over the trees. Behind him, Ryla was packing supplies into a small satchel. She moved, freely now. No pain, no chain, no fear, but her eyes were troubled. "He knows," she whispered. "The warlord. He knows I'm still alive." Jake nodded. "Let him come." Ryla walked to him. "You don't understand. He's not like my brothers. He doesn't send warnings. He doesn't ask questions. He erases people." Jake placed a hand on her cheek. "Then we don't run anymore." She looked into his eyes. "Why? Why are you still with me?" Jake smiled. "Because the first time I saw you, you were starving, crying, and alone. And now, you're not." That night, fire lit the sky. A massive ship, black as death, descended like a shadow from the clouds. The trees bent under the force of the landing. Lightning crawled across the ground. Jake and Ryla stood in the forest clearing, waiting. Lee. Ship's ramp lowered. Out came the warlord. He was taller than all. His skin was dark gray like stone. His armor shone with silver bones. His eyes glowed red with rage and power. He walked with soldiers behind him, but they didn't speak. They were machines, not men. He looked at Ryla. "You escaped," he said, his voice deep like thunder, "and you brought shame to your house." Ryla stood tall. "I brought truth. I was never yours." The warlord laughed. "You think love from a weak human can break blood? I don't want your body now. I want your death." Jake stepped forward. "Then you'll have to go through me." The warlord smirked. "Gladly." The battle began in fire. The soldiers rushed forward, weapons glowing. Jake fought with speed, using the terrain to his advantage, ducking, striking, vanishing. Ryla fired from behind cover, using old scavenged blasters Jake had repaired. But there were too many. One of the machines grabbed Ryla's arm, slamming her to the ground. Jake saw her scream, and something snapped inside him. He charged through the fire, his knife glowing with heat, and took down 3 machines in seconds. But then the warlord moved. He pulled a massive blade from his back. It hummed like a storm. Jake stood before him, breathing hard. "You think love is a shield?" the warlord asked. "No," Jake growled. "It's a weapon." The two clashed. Sparks flew, steel against steel, fist against fist. The warlord was stronger, Jake was faster, but strength won the first round. Jake fell, his side bleeding. Ryla cried out and crawled to him. "Please," she begged the warlord. "Don't kill him." He looked at her coldly. "Then take his place, return to me." Ryla stood slowly. She walked to the warlord. He smiled. But then, she pulled something from her armor. Jake's last hidden bomb. She pressed it against the warlord's chest. "If I go, you go with me." The warlord froze. Ryla's eyes filled with tears, but not of fear, of choice. "I am not your slave," she whispered. Jake shouted from the ground. "Don't do it." But Ryla turned to him and smiled. "I'm not dying, Jake," she said. "I'm ending this." Then she pressed the button. Boom! A flash of light. The forest shook. The warlord fell to the ground, not dead, but stunned. His armor cracked, his power broken. Ryla crawled to Jake. Her body burned, but alive. He held her tight. "It's over," he whispered. "No," she said. "It's just beginning." Days later, the forest began to heal. The warlord's ship was gone. His machines destroyed. His name no longer feared. Jake and Ryla built a new home together, a place of peace deep in the woods. One evening, Ryla sat beside the fire, watching the stars. She turned to Jake and smiled. "I was once starving, broken, and ready to die," she said, "and now?" She leaned on his shoulder. "Now I'm full, I'm free, and I'm home." Jake kissed her forehead gently. "You gave me more than I gave you," he said. Ryla laughed softly. "No, you gave me food, and then you gave me love. That's more than I ever knew. The stars above them blinked gently, like they were watching with joy, and in the middle of a once-dead world, a human and an alien girl wrote a new story, a story born not from war, but from one act of kindness.